want to start just an overall kind of a question. What strides are you guys making that you're most happy about? I know there's been some ups and downs and things like that, but from start to where you guys are now, what are you most happy about as far as the improvements and the strides forward?
That's a good question. I think at this point in the year, you're measuring yourself on how much you improve week to week. Obviously, we've had some bad luck with some injuries. We've played a lot of young guys, and so their development is really what's going to carry us and make us get better. I think this past weekend against Cincinnati, we played 5 true freshmen in the game on defense at one point or another. Another 2 guys that are sophomores that didn't play as freshmen, so essentially guys that are redshirt freshmen in the other program. So I think 7 or 8 freshmen or redshirt freshmen essentially played against the number 2 team in the country. And so I think those guys, the young guys that are playing, are getting better. We still got a long way to go. And so, our challenge as a staff is to bring those guys along as fast as we can to compete and play at a high level. And those guys don't have the benefit of getting a spring ball and another fall camp before they have to play, and they're playing against some pretty good people. So, but pleased with the way that we've been able to bring those guys along relatively quickly here. Historically, I don't know, I've only been here 3 years, but I don't know how many times 5 true freshmen played in a game on one side of the football at the Naval Academy, but I'm guessing it probably hadn't happened too often.
No.
But it's good because that means the future's bright here for sure. We're going to get some very talented young players in our program, so excited about that. And while you take some lumps because of that now, it's going to pay dividends in the future.
I was going to say, I know, obviously there's no moral victories and all that, but considering, everything that you're just talking about, going against the number 2 team in the country that, had just dropped 50, but back-to-back days, you've got to come away from with that feeling, obviously it's not a win, but you've got to still feel good about performance.
Yes and no. We met as a defensive unit on Monday, and I pulled 5 clips. Probably could have pulled a couple more that were clips of us not executing, not trusting the defense. We had 10 guys doing it right, 1 guy not doing his job, and not us getting beat one-on-one or missing a tackle, but us simply not executing a call. And some calls that we've we wrapped around here hundreds of times, and at certain points in the game that were critical. You look at the 4th and 8 is one call in particular. We've got a 0 blitz where we're bringing more than they can block, and we tell our guys play flat-footed in the coverage. The blitz has to get home. The ball's got to come out. They're going to try to get to the sticks to get the first down. We, 2 seniors are backpedaling. The things they've never done before. A lot of things like that. You look at that game, and really I guess you can always say this, Kareem, but there's really, 2 or 3 plays in a game on defense that if we execute, it could be an entirely different outcome. So a message to those guys is we play better on defense, we win that game, despite, some field position issues and some special teams blunders and some things like that. We still give ourselves a chance to win if we just simply execute. Thought we did a great job of stopping the run. One play they had, I think it was a 45, 50-yard run where we didn't fit it correctly. One guy not in his gap. That's what happens against good football teams. And it wasn't getting knocked out of our gap. It was a guy just simply missing an assignment, not being in the right gap. You take that play away, they have 50 yards rushing against us, which is pretty good. So yes and no. You're right. There are no moral victories. Moral victories for people that don't mind losing, and we're certainly not that.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you that we're really close. So it's frustrating when you look at those plays and felt like you really blew an opportunity. And I felt like we've done that. We played 3 top 25 teams, we lost by a touchdown. In all 3 of those games, you take 2 plays on defense, we just execute better. Simply execute. It's not a lack of ability or anything like that, just a lack of execution, and we may win those games. And so just the margin for error is so small for us. And our players have to understand that. They have to trust each other. They have to understand that we win with effort and details and discipline. And that's how we win around here. And if we don't, we can play it as hard as we want, but if we don't execute it, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
So hopefully that, we met together. I thought we had a really good meeting, positive meeting on Monday. I think they understand where we're at, what we got to do moving forward. And I expect to see some improvement in that regard, hopefully dramatic improvement. And if we do, we play pretty good defense around here and gives us a chance to win games.
And I'll just one last one and I'll shut up. I wanted to ask about Jarius Warren. I know we talked a lot about him last week, but I'm curious, I was talking to him and, obviously at this point in his career, he should be, a pretty mature kid, but has he always been that way? I was talking to him about, some of his goals coming, when he was coming in as a freshman and things like that. And he seems like, he was thinking farther down the road than maybe, other kids at 17, 18 might be. Has he always kind of been, I don't know, I don't want to call him old soul, but a little bit more mature for his age?
No, I don't think so. Now, and I know Jarius as it relates to football more than I do just some of the off the field stuff. I think early on, he's one of those guys that's matured a great deal. I think early on, he was more focused on himself and his job, and now it's kind of about more big picture things. And I've seen that maturation in him. I think he's just a great kid. I mean, he's a super tough kid. He's playing. We got a lot of guys that are banged up, and hurting, and he's pushing forward, and he's become a very unselfish teammate, a guy that cares about his teammates and does whatever he can for our football team. And I think when he was a young guy, like a lot of us were, like myself included, we're young. It's more about us and what's in it for us. And not that he was a selfish player. I don't mean that, but I think he's certainly grown as a leader and just as a guy that's a great teammate.
That's perfect. I appreciate it. And I'll shut up.
So,
Wags. Well, Coach, I was going to ask you a little bit about Nicholas Straw. When you came out with your base defense and he was out there starting it, reminded me, I'd forgotten all about Nicholas Straw. And, it's a tough situation. He's a veteran guy. He's a good player, but you went with an alignment that did not include him. How do you talk to a kid about that? This guy that wants to be on the field and, in the alignment you use, that was the Raider position was not part of it. Yeah.
A guy that's done a lot of really good things for us. Yeah, it's tough. And fortunately, we just talked about being a good teammate. I mean, he's one of the very best on our team. And one thing Nick Straw cares about is us winning games and him doing whatever he can to help us do that. And I think you should have noticed, Bill, that he is playing when we get into the nickel stuff. He's taking reps with Busick at end. So we have found a way to get him on the field. He's obviously not playing as many snaps as he does in base, when our base defense. But it was certainly thought he played well against Cincinnati. He's 235, 240 pounds, and he was holding his own there with those big offensive tackles and plays really, really hard, really physical. Really pleased with what he did and just his overall attitude. And nothing's changed with him. He comes to work every day, does whatever we ask him to do, and does whatever he can to help his team win. And a very unselfish kid, but it was never been an issue with him. I'm sure he's probably disappointed he hadn't played as many snaps, but for him, it's just about us winning games and whatever he can do to contribute to that.
I saw he only had one tackle in both the Houston, I think, Central Florida games, but then he did show up a little more. I'm looking at SMU he had 4 tackles against SMU, including 2 for loss. So I'm guessing that's when he started using them more at that defensive end position.
That's correct. Yeah.
And you feel like he holds up pretty good at he's not Jacob Busick size. So he's done that okay for you when he's been asked.
Yeah, well, he's usually, what we do with him, Bill, he's usually on an edge. He's usually a 9 to 8 side of a tight end. We will ask him to play on tackle some too, but he's never Busick will go in there and play a 3 technique some or be in a B gap, and we don't ask Straw to do that a whole bunch. But when he does, he's one of those guys that he's really strong. He has heavy hands. He plays at really, really good pad level. His fundamentals are really good, and that allows him to have some success and gets under people's pads, and he's really strong, stronger than his size would indicate.
But I'm guessing he was excited when he found out that you were going to be using the 3-4 alignment and he was back at his Raider spot. We had him after the game in the post-game presser, and he seemed in a good mood that he played a lot more and was able to contribute more.
Sure. Yeah, he was naturally. I mean, everybody wants to play as many snaps as they can, and he certainly deserved to play those snaps. I think he may have played too many. He was not quite used to playing that many snaps in the game yet, and so he got pretty fatigued, toward the end. Probably need to do a better job of rotating him in and out. But yeah, so we're going to do both moving forward, depending on who we play and our personnel and where we're at, injury wise, and all that kind of stuff. We're always want to do the best thing that gives us a chance to be successful. And sometimes that's being in our base package. Sometimes it's our nickel stuff. Sometimes it's based on our opponent. Sometimes it's based on us and the bodies that we have playing and getting our best players on the field.
So is Jamal Glenn really emerging as a leader? I mean, that game he had against Cincinnati was pretty darn impressive. Career high in tackles, a pick that basically takes points off the board.
Yeah.
I just hearing him in the post-game presser, he's outspoken, he's but direct, and I don't know. I'm impressed with Jamal.
I've always been impressed with Jamal, and how he came to be a starter for us, and I think we've talked about that before. Just his role wasn't very significant, his first 2.5 years here, and he just put his head down, went to work, and got an opportunity and made the most of it. And he's a soft-spoken guy, doesn't say a whole lot, but he's one of those guys that when he does talk, people listen, and people respect him for the way he carries himself and his work ethic, and he's a reliable, trustworthy guy. And he flew around, played really, really physical for 180-pound corner. He said I think he had 11 tackles, whatever it was, had a pick. He'll also be the first one to tell you there was a couple of critical plays where he could have executed better. It might have made a difference in us getting off the field. So he knows he's got room for improvement, like we all do. But yeah, I love Jamal. I think he's a really good player. I think he's an even better person, a better leader, a better teammate.
So in the instances in which you went with nickel package, you moved McMorris to safety, apparently. Who did you bring in at corner, first of all, and why did you decide to go with that? Because Michael's such a good corner. Why not bring in another guy at safety, or are you just out of him? Yeah,
well, it's always about trying to get our best players on the field. However we have to do that by moving people around, we're going to do it. We got some injuries in the back end at safety, so we shuffled some things around. Mikey's one of those guys that's extremely smart, so to move him from corner to free safety really felt like some of those young corners are playing well, and so you move a guy like Elias Larry to corner and Mikey to free safety, then you're getting your most athletic guys on the field. And we've not, productivity wise, we haven't been great at that spot. And so decided to make that move. We're going to push John Marshall up to the striker where he's been playing. We played most of last year. I think he's a little more comfortable in that spot, in that role. And so it's a change we made, and I think it's a good one moving forward.
I'll let someone else have a chance.
Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Coach. Thanks a lot for taking a break for us.
Yes, sir.
In the recent games for Tulsa, with their recent success, it looks like their offense is a little bit more balanced between the pass and the run. Have you seen that, and what type of challenges does that present for you guys this week?
Yeah, I think they're very similar to what they have been the last 2 years. They're big physical up front. They beat us up the last 2 years we played them on the O-line. They spread you out with the splits of their receivers, and they conflict you in a lot of different ways. But they take what you give them, like all RPO teams do. But I think this would be the fourth top 20, I think, offense that we played this season, statistically and just looking at total yardage. But they're throwing it for almost 300. They're rushing it for close to 2. And they're a really efficient offense. I mean, they're hard to defend. Like I said, they conflict you when they can run it and throw it, and it looks the same, for the guys in the back end. So, but they're another offense yet again. Week to week, it seems like it's a huge challenge for us on defense. But they're good all around. They have good skill, good running backs, good receivers. Quarterback can throw it, run it. So it's another huge challenge for us.
What do you like best about your defense this week heading into Tulsa?
I like the look in their eye yesterday and the way that the meeting I thought was really good and the way we came out to practice. You look at our team and we're 1-6 and we're all disappointed with that number and where we're at. But we all have hope too, and we all see that the possibilities of what we can do moving forward. And so I love the way they stayed together and the way they kept working. A lot of places I've been that wouldn't be the case. A lot of that is due to obviously our senior leadership, and the guys on this football team, and the kind of people they are, and obviously our head coach. He's one of the best leaders in the country, and we're still together and we're still fighting and still got a lot to play for. And I think our guys see how close we are too. We're really, really close, and if we can stop, shooting ourselves in the foot and play just a little better in all three phases, and we're gonna win games. We just got to find a way to finish. We got to find a way to finish and just keep getting better.
And do you think the guys really got the takeaway from you showing them just those few clips that really could have made a difference, like you say, winning that game?
I think so. I think it's good for everybody to be in the same room and everybody understand how what they do affects the entire play. I don't think sometimes the D linemen really understand what's going on behind them and how what they do might affect the linebacker or even the secondary, and vice versa. And so I think it's good to get room and have honest conversation about it and point things out, good and bad. I think it's good for them to see, and I think it's important for them to understand. I think a lot of those guys got pats on the butt and attaboys after we lost to Cincinnati because it was a close game. Well, I got some of those too, but it kind of ticked me off, to be honest with you, because it's if you really know the truth and you see the game and you watch the film, we may should have won that game, could have won that game if we just do a few things better that we can control. I can accept losing a game when somebody physically dominates us, or we don't coach well, or things like that. But we had a chance to win that game, and through things that we control, nothing to do with the other football team. So we could have won it, and so we're disappointed in that. And so I want to make sure that our guys weren't feeling too good about themselves, and see how close we are though, to being a good unit. And we've got to go out and play better and execute better. And we play really hard. We need to play harder, but our execution has to match our effort. And that's what makes us different here. We play harder than everybody else, right? We're more disciplined and we execute better. But we haven't done that as far as the discipline and execution piece, to my standard, to our standard. And so that piece has to be better. And when it does start to match the execution, then we'll win games.
You had talked about Tulsa's offense and the Brooks kid. He's got like 3,000 plus career yards. He can go. Do you see this as a game where maybe you could stick with the base 3-4 alignment, or are they diverse enough? And I don't want you to give away game plans, but is this a game where you've got to stop the run first and foremost? Do they like to establish the run with Brooks, or what?
Yeah, certainly do. I think, you have to stop the run with this group. So if they get that rolling, then everything else starts to fall in place for them. So, we need to be able to, we'll be in both, base. We'll feature the nickel stuff a little bit more than our base stuff, but we've got to be able to stop the run in both. And so looking forward to the challenge, but they're a big physical football team. If you don't stop the run with this outfit, it'd be a long day.
So I think, Strauss actually pointed out one of the reasons why you've had to go so deep in the safeties. There's a couple guys that haven't even played this year that could be helping you. I think Cuevas Gillis is one, and Strauss, remind me, who was the other that you pointed out to me last week?
Derek
Who?
Atwaters.
Atwaters, right. I forgot all about Atwaters. What's up with them? Are they're not going to be playing at all this year?
Yeah, so Derek was having a really good spring, tore his ACL, non-contact, at the end of the first week of spring football. I was really excited about him coming back, and he's having a good spring. He played a lot of snaps for us last year. So that was unfortunate. His recovery is going really well. And, Johnny was was battling for, was that kind of the third safety coming into fall, and had to have shoulder surgery. So we've had a little bit of bad luck. Obviously, the deal with Mitch and KB. So it's it's been a tough road, but I think we had some guys step up, and happy about where we're at. I thought Ray Lane's doing some really good things. As a true freshman, having learned everything, and then Evan Gibbons, who was a guy that had been out on scout team, at the beginning of the year, who started this past week for us. Both those guys, man, they're hard workers. That's really important to them. They're in here studying film. I was in here late last night. Both those guys were in watching practice. It's important to them, and we've got a bunch of guys like that. And so, next man up around here, but they've embraced it, and really, really happy with them so far.
Now, I was going to ask you about going back to Oklahoma. I mean, you're from Oklahoma City. I know that's the largest city in Oklahoma, but Tulsa's the second largest. Did you know that?
I did, yeah.
All right. Well, so does it mean anything to you? And do any family or friends make the drive over? I know it's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, right?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. Yeah, so I'll certainly have family there and some friends, and looking forward to that. I had a good friend that played at Tulsa when I was at Baylor. I think they'd be at the game. My old defensive backs coach will be at the game, and so obviously looking forward to seeing my family. I don't get to see them enough, and so it's just 2 hours down the road. So looking forward to that. And, I'm not sure. I think a couple more people that I'm sure that I may hear from toward the end of the week that hopefully will make an appearance. A couple of old coaches that live in that area, so hopefully I get a chance to say hello to them.
What high school did you attend?
Westmore.
Does it still exists?
It does, yeah. So it's the south side of Oklahoma City, Moore area.
And did Tulsa recruit you?
Tulsa did not. They sure didn't.
Really?
No. Tulsa didn't recruit me. Oklahoma didn't recruit me. Oklahoma State did a little bit. But yeah, they didn't. I think academically, I don't know if I could have gotten into Tulsa back then. It was pretty high standards.
Well, and on that note, I mean, since you have street cred in Oklahoma, are you doing any recruiting there? I don't know who recruits Oklahoma, but I'm a little surprised. There's only one player on the roster, Cameron Love from Oklahoma. Navy used to recruit Oklahoma heavy. Brian Madden was a pretty darn good quarterback. He was from Lawton, Oklahoma. And then Tyler Tidwell, a linebacker I wrote about, he was from Edmond, which is actually where this Cameron Love is from. But
Chris
are you
High.
getting in there?
Chris High was from
that?
Chris
Yeah,
High.
we are.
Yeah.
We actually, it's hard for me to get out on the road early during a game week just because of my responsibilities. But I think Coach Green's going to go out early and hit some schools up down there. Certainly some kids that we're recruiting in that area. I've taken over. Coach Okada's had that area for a while. I've taken it over. It's kind of my secondary area. So excited about that. But some good football in Oklahoma. Certainly up in that Tulsa area, some great programs. And so we're going to take advantage of being on the road up there.
Just wanted to ask a quickie about last week. I know the end result wasn't what you guys wanted, but what was your biggest takeaway from your guys' performance? I know Newberry just came and said, there were good things, but there were some mistakes that, he wanted to make sure everybody pointed out on.
I think that the biggest thing that we took away was when we trust each other, when we trust the play, when we trust our technique, good things happen. And when we don't, bad things happen. For a good amount of the game, we trusted our technique. We trusted our job, doing our job. We trusted the people around us. And we played well. And then the few plays where instead of us getting off the field, they might have got a first down by like a yard, or it goes from it being a sack to, he slips right by just barely, and they get the first down. Like those plays come down to trusting the play and trusting the people around us to do the job. So I think that's the biggest thing that we'll take from that game, and we're going to try to improve on that going forward.
All the coaches kind of talk about, is that one of those examples of, there's just a slim margin of error, and if you get that, boom, it looks completely different, and we're having a different kind of conversation?
Definitely our error of margin is small, like you just alluded to. So I mean, literally, there's a play where I blitzed, and if I would have took one less step, if I walked into it a little bit more, I would have made the sack. But then the guard kicked me out like a half a second right before I was about to touch him. So like plays like that, small things like that can cost us big.
And just one last one from me. I just wanted to ask about Jarius Warren. You know, when you see him out there, what stands out the most to you, whether it's on the field, off the field, just kind of who he is as a teammate? You know, when you think of Jarius, what comes to mind?
For me, the biggest thing that I like to him, one thing I love that he brings to the team is his mentality. He's a dog. That's just he doesn't care who's lined up in front of him. How big they are, how many stars they had coming out of high school. He's gonna say, I'm better than you, and I'm gonna work you the whole game. This game especially, he was lined up on the inside and going against guys their guard was 6'9", like 330, you know? So he's going against NFL talent, but he's gonna have that mentality that I'm gonna work you today every single day. He does it in practice as well. So that's the one thing that I love about Jay, and I think it's contagious as well. Because when we see him dominate big dudes like that, it's like, all right, if he can do this against these guys, then we can do our job definitely. So
It's perfect. I appreciate you.
Wags.
Well, Jamal, kind of on the note that Kareem was sounding, I mean, I was a little surprised here. You know, Coach Newberry kind of said he wasn't happy with Cincinnati result, and people were patting you guys on the back and saying, wow, yeah, it's great. You played them tough. Oh, wow, you held a team that scores a lot of points to 27 points. And he kind of got angry about that because that's not the name of the game. It's winning a ball game. What were you surprised by the tone he struck afterwards or on Sunday, whenever you guys had your meeting?
no, not really. I think that's been like a common thing so far this year. We've been close to winning, but we haven't finished games out. I think I said this before, after the game. We came into the game like there's no such thing as moral victories. So it didn't matter if we lost by a field goal or not. We left plays on the field and plays that like were uncharacteristic of us, you know, like it was like little errors that came down like 5-6 plays really. That would have changed the game. And instead of us losing, we probably would have won that game, regardless of what anybody else on the team would have done, just off defense. So it was disappointing. It wasn't a surprise to me at all. I think we all understood his mindset. We all feel the same way. So.
And something else we just talked to Coach Newberry about. I mean, you seem to be emerging as a leader, not just of the secondary, but of the entire defense. You know, you're kind of outspoken. You speak your mind and tell it like it is. I mean, is that something you've grown into? You feel confident in being in that role now? I know you're not a captain, but you're a senior.
Yes. I think that it all started in the corner room, and I think as the season has gone on, you just get more comfortable leading the people around you. So with KB going down and Mitch, I definitely had to take a bigger role in the secondary, and I think that's just leaked onto the entire defense in general.
Thanks, Jamal.
Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Jamal, I know last season, I think you got your second career start against Tulsa. I mean, they seem like they're a lot like Navy, just a mean, very physical team that gets the best out of their athletes. What are you expecting when you go into Tulsa from them?
I expect it to be a dogfight, if I'm completely honest. I think even though we played really well against Cincinnati and they're number 2 team in the country, I totally expect this game to be a dogfight as well. It's going to be a close game. Like you said, they try to wear you out. They're going to try to run the ball. They also have athletes on the outside that catches. So we have to be on it as DBs. We're going to have to be ready. And then on the interior, I know Diego and the D line, they'll hold it down. But it's going to be a dogfight for sure.
Tulsa's another high-powered offense. I mean, they put up some points just like everybody, but I mean, you're used to this. I mean, do you feel like the defense is poised to, finally, like you said, put it all together and not make the mistakes that are costly and do what it takes to get a win, regardless of what happens with the offense on Friday night?
And that's the plan, to limit their offense as much as possible. This whole week, we're going back to our fundamentals. I think the biggest thing that we need to work on is just being consistent. We limited Cincinnati, but like I said, there was like 5-6 plays where we just did really, including myself. I made big mistakes in 3 of those. So just going back to the fundamentals and eliminating those small errors to take our game to the next level. Instead of being a good defense, trying to be a great one.